Kling Connection Travel Talk podcast, where the world of travel comes to life through real conversations. Hosted by Sean Kling, each episode explores the highs and lows of life on the road, connecting with travelers, industry insiders, and digital nomads to uncover expert tips, budget hacks, and inspiring stories. Whether you're a weekend explorer, a full-time adventurer, or simply wanderlust curious, Sean brings first-hand advice, destination insights, and honest takes from those shaping the global travel scene. Join Sean Kling each week as Kling Connection connects the dots of the travel world, one unforgettable journey at a time.
Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Kling Connection. I'd like to thank you all for stopping back in, and today we got a really special guest. Her name is Rebecca Rowntree. She is an expert on relocation and real estate in the country of Costa Rica. And we have so much to talk to her about, and she's so knowledgeable. Now, before everybody starts wondering, yes, she's from Canada. She's not from the United States, but a lot of the information that she will give is applicable to the American people as well as the Canadian people and people from Europe as well. So without further ado, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, let's start off with a little bit about who you are and where you're from, Rebecca. We know you're from Canada, so you want to tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you came from, and growing up, and what took you to Costa Rica?
Sure, absolutely. So yes, I'm from the province of Ontario, near Toronto. I lived my life all over Ontario. My family moved around a lot when I was growing up. I had the opportunity to travel coast to coast in Canada. And as an adult, I traveled coast to coast in America. I used to ride motorcycle. So that's how I did most of my travels across North America. I'm not a Harley mama. I'm a BMW iron butt kind of girl.
Okay.
So that's how I did my travel across North America. And I also traveled pretty broadly across Europe, renting motorcycles abroad, also doing cruises, and just, I've never been an all-inclusive kind of travel person. It's always been plans that I've made myself or with friends. So coming to the point of how I came to Costa Rica, I wanted to move abroad for quite some time, and I had actually been considering 3 different countries in Europe: Spain, Italy, and Greece. And I had traveled to each of those 3 countries numerous times, checking out the many different areas of those countries. And then in 2011, randomly, I decided to come to Costa Rica and rented a motorcycle in San Jose and drove around the country for almost a month, touring the various areas, provinces, and trying to think about where I would like to see myself living in the future. And I didn't know when that was going to be. I just knew that it was something I wanted to do. So that was in 2011. Fast forward to 2012, I had a motorcycle wreck. One day after work, I had just gone for a short ride to blow off some steam, and a car pulled out directly in front of me. Fortunately, I was not going very fast, maybe 30 miles an hour. However, I did total my motorcycle, went over the hood, hit my head really hard. Turns out I dislodged the olfactory bulb, which is where you get your sense of taste and smell, and also shattered my right wrist. I was off work for three months. And the doctors said to me, "We don't know if your senses will ever return. There's nothing we can do." I had tests and scans, and it was like, it'll either come back on its own or it will not come back at all. I went for several different kinds of treatments. One day I went to McDonald's and got a peppermint mocha, even though I knew I couldn't taste it, but I just know what I love.
Gotta love the peppermint mocha.
I went to the shopping mall to literally just pick up dry cleaning, which was right inside the mall. Walked into the mall, could not taste or smell anything. Came out 5 minutes later with my dry cleaning, and I smelled tar. The roof of the mall was being tarred. And I thought, wow, this is wild. I got back in my car and I thought, okay, had a sip of my peppermint mocha, and I tasted. And I sat there for about an hour and just cried because it was just a life shattering thing to lose your sense of taste and smell.
Yeah.
And then to have it return so immediately. And that is the catalyst that sort of set me on this path to wanting to discover a different life for myself. I had been working in the publishing industry in books and magazines for 25 years, a career that I thoroughly enjoyed, loved every aspect of it, traveled the globe in the business, met so many different famous musicians and authors and actors, and it was an amazing career. But that accident and kind of the rebirth of gaining my senses brought me to my life senses.
Okay.
And that was in 2012, the year that I decided, okay, I'm really going to do this. I'm going to move abroad, and started making plans and tracks to do that, and finally pulled the trigger in 2014.
So did you move all by yourself? Did you move with, did you have a significant other? Did you have family members, a friend, or anybody, or is this just something you did alone?
I was going to do it alone, and I had a boyfriend at the time who had recently proposed, and under some amount of duress, I said yes, because he did it in a public place, and it was really not what I was expecting. But anyway, so I thought, you know what, if I'm going to move to Costa Rica, I knew nobody. I had done only research about things that mattered, like eventually if there was a pension still from Canada when I retired, could I actually get paid that pension in Costa Rica? What was the healthcare like in Costa Rica? What were living expenses? I didn't look at anything about like making friends or anything else. I knew where I was going to move and that I was going to be okay. That was about it. So he did move down here with me, and we were together for the first 4 years that I lived in Costa Rica. And then we went our separate ways almost 6 years ago. He's still in Costa Rica too, just in a different place.
You've been in Costa Rica how long now?
It'll be 11 years in October.
11 years. Wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
And I know before the show you were telling me it's been 4 or 5 years since you've been back to Canada.
Yes. I have not been back to Canada since 21. I traveled to Canada in 2020 because it was a man.
Right.
And I got stuck in Canada during COVID for a few months. And it was an interesting time because everything I own, my entire life, is here in Costa Rica. My businesses, my pets, and I could not come back. Anyway, it was an interesting time. And so then in 21, my mom got really sick, and she was having a very difficult time. So that was the last time I was in Canada, was back in 21.
Okay.
But my mom has recently twisted my arm. My dad is turning 80 next month, and so she twisted my arm till it almost broke. And so I am going to Canada in August in 3 weeks for a couple weeks to visit.
What made you choose Costa Rica? I mean, you said that you were in Europe. It was down to 3 separate countries: Spain, Italy, and Greece, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously,
Correct.
You had driven across the country in a motorcycle in Europe as well as in North America. So you've seen a lot. But what was the deciding factor of Costa Rica? What made that made you want to grab and say, that's where I want to go?
It was a number of things. The biggest factors were the consistency of the climate. So in the area in which I live, which is the South Pacific region called the Costa Ballena, which means whale coast, this area is consistently between 75 to 85 degrees every day of the year. The time of day doesn't shift. So it's daylight at 5:30 in the morning, and it is dark at 6:30 every night, all year round. It is green every day of the year in this part of Costa Rica. There are other parts of the country where it's a little more arid, and so it does get kind of brown in the summer.
Yeah.
But in this South Pacific region, it is lush and green and jungly every day of the year. I love that. And I love the people here. The Costa Rican people are amazing. The food is some of the freshest food I've ever tasted.
So when you decided to go to Costa Rica, you said, okay, this is my heaven on earth. This is where I want to
Yes.
spend my time. Now we have a lot of expats. We have a lot of digital nomads, but we have a majority of our listeners are mainly people that are exploring the options and just haven't taken that leap yet. They don't know how to, or they're afraid to, or maybe there's a pension issue they're waiting. You know, what was the deciding factor as a Canadian, but also, maybe as me as American, you can enlighten me as an American as well. But as a Canadian, what was the deciding factor? Was it the ease of the visa? Was it the to be able to get some sort of a residency? Can you kind of go into that? Because, I'm ignorant of it as well. So I would love to know, all about that.
Sure, absolutely. And that's a key question that I'm asked time and again by clients that are considering moving to Costa Rica. So yes, the path to residency in Costa Rica is quite simple. And there are a number of different paths that you can take. So one of the most common, because I'm in the real estate business here, is as an investor. And so Costa Rica actually recently reduced the amount that you have to invest in order to apply for a residency under that method. It's now very accessible, only $150,000 US as an investment in Costa Rica, and then you can apply for residency.
Okay.
Another method is pensionado. So if you have a minimum of $2,000 a month going into an account that comes from some source of retirement income, you can qualify as a pensionado resident. And the other method is as a rentista, they call it. So if you're too young to have a pension and you don't have funds to purchase $150,000 in real estate, you can put $60,000 US into a bank account in a CD in Costa Rica, and then apply as a rentista.
So let me
Now,
ask you this about the pensionado, because I think that outside of maybe somebody buying a house, the pensionado would probably be the majority of our listeners. So does that like American Social Security, a military pension, a disability pension, a 401k pension, does that all qualify?
yes, any of those means qualify. Just whatever source of the funds coming to you into your account, you need to have a letter from the agency that pays those funds to your account stating that it's, a static amount of money, that it's, it's never going to decrease below that threshold.
Okay, yeah, because like you take somebody like me, I'm a disabled veteran, and I get an American veteran. I get pension every month, and if I was going to say move me and Shayna, that's my wife, if we were going to move to Costa Rica, is that $2,000 a person, or is that $2,000 a household?
So that can be as a household, because Shayna could become a resident as a dependent under your residency.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So even though I'm not officially retirement age, I'm only, just shy of 50, because I have that pension. If I said, hey, Costa Rica, here I come, I would just have to get some sort of acknowledgement from the Veterans Administration that says that, hey, here you go. Because there's a lot of vets that, are my age, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, that I've talked to that have been exploring the options of retirement visas. And some have an age requirement. Some you have to be 50 or 55. Some don't have an age requirement. Are you aware of a age requirement for Costa Rica?
There is no age requirement. As long as it's a registered form of a pension being paid to your account, you're good to go. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So then you move to Costa Rica and you get into real estate, which is interesting. You own a real estate company. As a matter of fact, you have you're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn on your real estate. Where can somebody go before we get into the conversation? Where can somebody go to find you on social media?
So on Facebook and Instagram, my handle is Real Estate Tours in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is just my personal name, Rebecca Rowntree.
Okay. So to all our listeners out there, reach out to Rebecca if you have a question about Costa Rica. And we have a while to go yet on the podcast, and I want to, there's going to be a lot of questions, but I'm sure I'm not going to get everything that needs to be answered or specific stuff. And I'm sure if Rebecca doesn't have the answer, she can get the answer from somebody and help you out. She's been amazing to deal with. Even getting her on the show, she's been very communicative. So, okay. So you got into real estate down there. Did you start with buying your own home, or how did that work? How did you get into the real estate world in Costa Rica?
Okay, so yes, I was house hunting here. Actually, I was hotel hunting because owning a boutique hotel had been a dream since I was 12 years old, and was part of my plan in moving to Costa Rica to completely change my life. Meant I was departing my publishing career and beginning a new career as a hotelier. And as I was going through the process of purchasing the property, went through the due diligence. So purchasing real estate in Costa Rica is very similar to what it is in North America, both Canada and the US. Very similar process. And during the due diligence phase of purchasing this property, I found out that there were some issues with the land survey. Part of the building, one of the buildings was on the neighbor's property. The driveway didn't touch the public road, so it couldn't be a business. And I ended up shifting away from purchasing an existing hotel type property and buying raw land, which I promised myself I would never do. Buying raw land and building a hotel from scratch. The reason I didn't want to do that is because while I was growing up, my parents moved a lot, and we went to different schools, and my parents renovated many different homes, and sometimes it went well and sometimes it didn't. And so I just promised myself I was not going to build. Anyway, I did end up building. So never say never is another lesson. And during the process of purchasing the real estate and then getting the hotel plans drawn and putting together the business plan for the hotel, the broker of the brokerage that now approached me and said, Rebecca, your whole background is sales. Yes, it was a different industry, but you're a people person. You used to do hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. You know all about marketing. You should consider getting into real estate. And I was like, no, I'm doing the hotel. That's my focus. And he just was persistent. At the same time, my mom had been a realtor in Canada. And so I kind of grew up in the real estate business, watching her do her work, helping her put out open houses, helping her do door knocking, sitting at the office while she was typing up offers and things like that. And so it had always kind of been in the back of my mind, but Kevin, my broker, brought it to the forefront, and I finally relented and said, you know what, I think this actually is a great idea. And so I've been a realtor here for almost 10 years.
Wow. So one of the interesting things I wanted to ask you about was investing. Now that you're talking about hotels and stuff, so if I'm an American investor, a Canadian investor, European investor, you can invest in a foreign LLC in Costa Rica. I'm not really familiar with that, but it sounds intriguing. So what is that all about?
Yeah, so I have clients that also either open or purchase existing businesses in Costa Rica, whether it's a hotel or a restaurant. Clients have purchased a furniture store. And so the process here in Costa Rica to have a business is to create a Costa Rican corporation. And then if you're in America, for example, and this applies to Canada too, even in Europe, you can have an LLC from your home country own the corporation in Costa Rica. And that's
Okay.
what a lot of my clients do. You can also apply that same methodology if you're just buying a home that's going to be on Airbnb or VRBO. Anything that's an income generating asset in Costa Rica should be held in a Costa Rican corporation that your home country LLC can then own as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've heard some interesting stories about some issues with the banks though. Have you heard that as well? A couple people have said they put money into Costa Rican banks and the banks took their funds or something. I don't know if that's is a common thing, or maybe they were doing something illegal, or I don't know. But have you heard anything like that?
I have not heard of banks taking people's funds, but as the same in any country around the world, there are scams that do occur. I recently heard of a mother of one of my clients in Canada who was scammed out of tens of thousands of dollars over the phone, giving access somehow to her banking. That happens in Costa Rica too, once in a blue moon. Yes.
So they're very friendly to Canadians, Americans, Europeans, and Costa Rica, because
Yes.
as a Gen Xer, as you can tell by my shirt, you hear
Yeah.
stories from back in the '80s and stuff that those parts where the countries were very warlike and stuff like that. But it's not like that anymore. It's more friendly towards Americans. Okay, very welcoming actually, from what I understand. It's a big expat community.
Big expat community living here, whether it's full time or part time. But tourism is the number one industry also for Costa Rica. So it's a really important thing, having just access to services and things in Costa Rica. The government hard to maintain good rapport with expats from around the world, whether they're just traveling here for vacations or relocating, and we're investing.
So, getting back to what you were saying about the lady that got scammed, then let's talk a little bit about due diligence. Like you said that you found the property that you were looking at, there was an issue with tying into the public access road. You talked about potential of people getting scammed. Like, how are some ways that if I'm interested, if I contact you, say, hey, Rebecca, I want to come to Costa Rica, I want to check it out, I want to work with you, what are some things that I can do on my own? Because you never take everybody 100% for gospel, that I can do my due diligence. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Uh-huh. So the due diligence process here is basically once you have a signed purchase agreement, you will work with a Costa Rican attorney who will do all the legal verifications of the property to make sure that the title is free and clear. There's no liens, no mortgages, lawsuits, etc. That it's not in a national park, that there's no encumbrances with creeks, rivers, the ocean. At the same time, as a realtor, I guide my clients through the process of if it's a home or a structure on the property, we do a home inspection. And typically we do work with North American home inspectors that have come from abroad, but have been living in Costa Rica for many years. And so they understand the toll that the climate takes on structures, whether it is, potential landslide issues or water management, things like that, because it's not uncommon to get 12 inches of rain in an hour here during the peak
Yeah.
rainy season. So water management is key. The home inspectors look for things like that. If the survey is really old, before GPS technology was used in Costa Rica, we always recommend having a surveyor go out and verify the boundaries too. And that's how I found out that one of the structures I was going to purchase was actually on the neighbor's lot,
Oh,
technically. So things can get corrected sometimes, and that could have been resolved. But what could not, in my case, in that property was that it did not have public road frontage, and therefore it was not zoned commercial. It was purely residential.
so how
So
many
those are some
properties do
key
you
things.
own?
I only own one property currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the hotel.
The
Yes.
hotel. Okay, that's cool.
Yes.
Cool. So doing the due diligence, making sure that you're not on somebody else's property, that there's not an easement issue or a water issue. That's key. And I think what people should understand is that don't always pay attention to what you see on TV. A lot of these governments are not bad. Don't be afraid. You need to get rid of that fear that they are trying to do the right thing, because there's not people out trying to play games. They want you to come there and live and spend your money and enjoy yourself. They're not trying to, the problem with TV is that they're always trying to tell you that people are playing games and trying to take something from you, when in reality, they're probably not.
Correct. Doing due diligence on anything in life is critical. And I have clients that spend millions of dollars investing in property in Costa Rica. And sometimes they bring in their U.S. attorneys, not necessarily into the country, but into the process, and have the purchase contract reviewed. Then from the Costa Rican attorney sends it to their U.S. attorney, and they, have a call and review and make sure everyone's comfortable with everything. I have clients sometimes that use an IRA, a self-directed IRA, to make a purchase. And so then in that case, their investment company gets involved in reviewing all the documents. And so it can be as in-depth as you want it to be, to make sure that you're comfortable and knowing that your investment is secure.
So if I'm sitting here in Tampa, Florida, and I say, okay, Rebecca, I want to come down to Costa Rica and visit you. I'd like to connect with you and see what's going on. What would you recommend for me to begin that mission? And prior to investing, prior to applying for any type of residency, and just getting a hold of you, what would you recommend, and how, with baby steps? Because I always tell people do their due diligence. It might not be right for them. But what would you recommend if I got a hold of you and just started the process? Say, Rebecca, I want to come to Costa Rica. I want to check this out. What is that? What would this process be?
Yeah, so I offer real estate tours for clients. So that can be an all-inclusive experience for those who, have never come to Costa Rica, or maybe when they do travel abroad, they tend to go to all-inclusive kinds of properties. Costa Rica does have all-inclusive hotels, but they're in the northern province called Guanacaste. In the southern provinces here, South Pacific region, we do not have all-inclusive hotels. They're typically smaller boutique hotels. There's a couple big brands, but so I recommend signing up for a real estate tour. It can also be all a la carte. So you can stay if you like renting Airbnbs, you can stay in an Airbnb, rent a car, a vehicle, and we can meet up and drive around and show you different towns and different communities. And then if you're going to be doing the a la carte and renting your own vehicle, then you're free to travel other parts of Costa Rica too. Just because I live in the South Pacific, of course, I chose this region for many reasons. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily everyone's cup of tea. So right. It's good to check out different areas of the country.
So as far as safety goes, that's another concern that people have. I mean, obviously, Costa Rica is, I'm assuming, is a majority Spanish-speaking country, even though there are people that speak English there. So there might be a communication barrier with some people, not with everybody, but with some people. But as far as safety goes and communication barriers go, what would you tell somebody that's interested in coming to Costa Rica about that?
As far as safety goes, I always just suggest using common sense. For whatever reason, sometimes people just don't use common sense. It's not uncommon in different Facebook expat groups for Costa Rica to see someone post, hey, I stopped at the Hako sign, just to jump out and take photos of the beach behind. And our car was robbed. We left a backpack in there with our iPads and our laptops and cameras and passports and cash. And we got back in the car and realized it was gone. Right. Well, they didn't lock their car. Or they did, and some people, as around anywhere in the world, have those little devices where if you beep it, they unbeep it. And so they can still get in and take your stuff. The key thing is use common sense. Don't leave valuables unattended in your vehicle. I never did that when I lived in Canada. I would not do it here.
Right.
I would not do it in Europe.
Oh, we definitely, not in Europe. We just got back from Rome, and beautiful city, but I would be a little bit hesitant to leave anything in the car in Rome, just because you don't know what you're going to run into. You don't.
I wouldn't do it in Toronto, and I wouldn't do it in Tampa.
No, definitely not in Tampa. Don't do it, Tampa. But you're talking about cars now. This is interesting because you're the first person that I've ever had on the show that brought up, riding around and stuff. Can you tell me a little bit about, auto insurance, driving around? I know that sometimes when you go to in a country, and if you're Canadian and American, we essentially drive the same,
Mhm.
but if, like when I've been to Europe, they don't drive the same as us. They're a little more crazy than us. But what's that like in Costa Rica as far as getting your Costa Rican driver's license, driving a car, having to have insurance, that type of stuff?
Mhm. Okay, so when you're just traveling here on vacation, renting a vehicle, Enterprise, Avis, you name it, we have it here. Um, so they all offer the um, insurance that you can purchase separate from the car rental. And I always suggest that people take that out because the basic insurance just covers third party. Like if you hit somebody and they're injured, it covers that, but it will not cover repairs on the vehicle. So I always recommend doing that. Driving here, most of our like all of our highways here are paved. They're actually just repaving the South Coast Highway here right now. So those roads are in excellent condition. The highways in San Jose, the capital, you would think you were in any big country in the US. Once you get off the main highways, then in a lot of cases, you're onto gravel roads. So I always recommend to people to rent an SUV and preferably a 4x4, just because you never know what beaten track you're going to get off
Yeah.
onto. And even just getting to some of the beaches, you might have to cross through a little stream to get to the beach. So it's good to have a high vehicle and something that's 4x4.
It's that, I always wonder because outside of when I drove to Canada, I drove in Canada because I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so it's not that far from Canada.
None.
I've never driven in a foreign country. I've ridden in cars in foreign countries, but I've never driven in. When I was in London, or when I was in Italy, or even when we were in some of the islands in the Caribbean, I was like, I don't want to drive. I'll let somebody else drive. This is not what I'm used to.
I've rented vehicles in many different countries around the world, both motorcycles, scooters, cars. Actually, when I was in Italy in 2009 on a 6-week vacation on my own, I rented a vehicle and drove all over Italy. That's when I was still thinking I was maybe going to move to Italy. And I kept seeing all these signs with a camera on it. And I thought, okay, this is a spot to stop and, take a photo or whatever. And then when I got home about 6 months later, I had 3 beautiful full-page holographic speeding tickets from
Oh,
Italy.
wow.
Those signs were for photo radar, not photo ops.
Oh, wow.
But back to Costa Rica, drivers here they can be crazy. It's interesting because just this weekend, for the ever in all the time I've lived here, I saw 2 different vehicles that had signs on the door saying that they were driving schools. And I'm so glad to see that. And I do think that that's a relatively new thing here, having never seen one before. But there is a stat that approximately 50% of Costa Ricans that drive are not licensed.
Oh, wow.
And so the driving here can be crazy. Like they don't signal most of the time, or and just things like that happen anywhere, right? People are talking on their phones, although in North America, a lot of places that's banned now, or you have to be hands-free, but there's guys riding on motorcycles texting. So, I mean, that's commonplace here. Yeah. So you have to be very, very alert and like a proactive driver in Costa Rica.
What about public transportation?
Public transportation is definitely available here. Uber is now pretty widely spread throughout the country, even in the South Pacific region now. Taxis are really common in the city, not that common in small places. The bus system, though, in Costa Rica is absolutely incredible. It's really affordable. And they have just like regional buses or they have cross-country buses. Their schedules are a little, if they say they're going to be there at 1, it could be 1:30, but they do show up. And we have very few bus crashes in this country, which is amazing considering some of the roads. We have like super like twisty paved roads that are like switchbacks, and the bus drivers are amazing at handling those roads.
What about airports? If I'm flying into Costa Rica, what are the airports we generally land into, and what's customs like, all that stuff? I myself get major anxiety going through customs, because even though I never do anything illegal, I'm always afraid they're gonna be like, oh, you have a stick of bubble gum you bought or something, But what airports are there and stuff?
So the two international airports in Costa Rica are San Jose, which is the capital. And then in the north, they have another international airport in the city of Liberia. And so those are the two hubs coming into the country. And then there are quite a number of regional airports around the country. So an option, for example, to get to the South Pacific region is you could either rent a vehicle and drive down the coast, which is a beautiful drive, or you can take a regional flight from San Jose that's 15, 20 minutes to Quepos, Manuel Antonio, which is a big destination place. And then you have access to the whole southern region.
So if I was coming to see you, where would I fly into? There or?
You would fly into San Jose, and then you could fly to Quepos or rent a vehicle from San Jose. Yes.
Okay.
And those regional flights are really affordable. It's around $100 or less per person. So it's a fast, affordable way to travel. I use them a lot when I want to go up to the city, for example, to go see a symphony or an opera, or to do some shopping. I'll park in Quepos and jump on a little regional jet and be there in 20 minutes, and then just Uber around the city. It's awesome.
So then I got to ask you the next question. Food. What's it like? I mean, I know you told me it's fresh, but like, what is the food like? We have a bunch of foodies that follow us.
And I am a foodie too. So it's interesting because when I moved here, actually the village that I live in is called Ojo Chal. It's spelled Ojochal. And for 20 plus years, this little tiny, tiny jungle village was known as the culinary capital of this country. We had the best restaurants for many, many, many years, and we still do, but there are many awesome restaurants now in San Jose and various other cities. But like literally, many people think oftentimes that Costa Rica is an island because we are bordered by the Pacific and also the Atlantic, but we're not. This is a landmass. We're connected to other countries. But because we have fish on both coasts, we have access to all that fresh fish every day of the year. We have the most incredible fruits growing in this country. I mean, a huge percentage of the bananas that get transported around the world come from Costa Rica. The same with pineapples that grow here all year round. Mangoes, avocados. We even have things like apples that grow here, oranges, all limes, lemons. And then just in terms of, our meat in this country is not injected with all the crazy crap that happened in North America, So chicken here tastes like chicken tasted when I was a kid in Canada. When I go to Canada or the States, I do not eat chicken. I just don't even know what it is. It does not taste like chicken to me. The texture is weird. The flavor is strange, but chicken here is actual, like real chicken. So the food here is amazing. There's so many great chefs, that run these restaurants. Catering is a great thing here. Lots of times when clients are renting Airbnbs, or they'll, hire a private chef to come in and do the cooking for them. And that's a great option because then you get to taste all those local recipes that are really unique to Costa Rica, like gallo pinto, which is one of my favorite things for breakfast. It's just rice with with onion and little humps of pepper and cilantro. And then they put this amazing thing called lizano on it.
Oh, wow.
Lizano is a sauce that Costa Rica is really well known for, and it just makes the flavors pop. So there's many different dishes in Costa Rica that are really authentic.
Now
But
you mentioned,
we have
I'm sorry, go ahead.
we have, French restaurants. I'm so excited. Now we have an Indian restaurant in the next town over. So that was something that I was just dying without moving here to Costa Rica, because that was one thing that was so popular in Canada and the States too, is, different ethnic foods. And there was just so little of it when I moved here. And now it's accessible. We have Thai, we have, oh yeah, yay. But I still favor Costa Rican, just fresh stuff.
Now you mentioned that Costa Rica obviously is not an island. I knew it wasn't an island. It's in Central America. But is it difficult to visit neighboring countries from Costa Rica? How does that work? Like if I want to go to like a neighboring country someplace and check it out.
Absolutely. It's super accessible, and especially neighboring countries, the flights are frequent and really cost effective. So you can fly from here to Panama City, for example, for like 150 bucks.
Oh, wow.
I have had a number of friends recently that have been going to Colombia now that it's quite a lot safer there. So flying into Bogota or Medellin, traveling to lots of people go to Guatemala, El Salvador. Yeah, it's really affordable. Recently in May, I traveled from Costa Rica though and went to Europe. And it's a bit of a haul. There are less direct flights to European countries, although there are some. But just where I was going, and I was flying to Portugal, there were no direct flights. So I had to do kind of a few different stops. But yes, traveling to other countries is a great option. And it's fantastic too if you're not a resident of Costa Rica. You can stay in the country for now 180 days.
Oh,
Costa Rica
6 months.
changed that law. Yeah, 6 months. Up until last year, it was only 90 days. And
There's very
so,
few countries that allow you to do that. I know the United Kingdom allows Americans to stay for 6 months, and I think Canada allowed us to stay for 6 months. But outside of that, I'm not really aware. So now Costa Rica is on that list as well.
yeah, so now Costa Rica. Sean, back to your question about arriving in the airport and going through customs. So one thing is that Costa Rica requires that your passport has to be valid for 6 months from the time that you land in Costa Rica. So that's really important. And they really stick to that. I've had clients who landed and they didn't realize that, and they were turned back and put on a plane back to their home country. So that's a critical thing. But otherwise, once you go through the customs, really all they want to know is where you're going to be staying. So they want to know what's the name of the hotel, what city is it in, or what house are you staying at? And then you have to show proof of return. So when you arrive, you have to have a round trip ticket, even if it's 6 months from now, but it has to be within that period.
So going back to a little bit about what you do, I was just reading that you offer like a turnkey service for businesses for expats and uh, expats and digital nomads. Can you tell me a little bit about that? That's very interesting because that's the first time I've ever heard of that.
Yeah. So for me, the process of relocating to Costa Rica or living here for any extended period of time is really just near and dear to me, because I want people to be successful in their experience here in Costa Rica. Because I had sort of almost intentionally not done a lot of networking before I moved to Costa Rica, I learned a lot of things the hard way. And at the same time, some things have gotten easier in the time that I've lived in Costa Rica, like applying for residency or opening bank accounts here now are much simpler than it was back then. But I'm always happy to help advise my clients and even sometimes go to the bank with them to do certain things, just to try to make their experience positive as much as I possibly can.
Are you running into a lot more people now coming to Costa Rica since COVID, or is it about the same, or numbers ticked up?
Yeah, so Wow, Sean, it's a great question because the demographics here have changed substantially. When I moved here in 2014, I had just turned 40. People said, "You're having a midlife crisis." I'm like, no, this is a midlife correction. I'm really intentional what I'm doing here. But when I moved here, I was the youngest expat living in this village full time. Everyone else that was living here all year round were my parents' age, which was fine. I've always gotten along with older people. But it wasn't till about 3 years later that people in their 40s, 50s started deciding to live in Costa Rica full time. And then, wow, when COVID hit, everything changed. Now there are literally hundreds and hundreds of young families living here in my area and around Costa Rica that moved here during COVID, during that phase where they could be a digital nomad and live anywhere in the world and do their work. Some of them have had to go back to the States or back to their home country to go back into the office. Other people have decided, you know what, I'm going to sever that tie and have found a new way to earn an income in Costa Rica, which is definitely a possibility. So they're, forever changed their life and how they want to raise their children. I liken living in Costa Rica in this day and age to what it was like living in North America in the 60s and 70s, where everything felt more possible and more wholesome, and like go outside and play till dark and don't come back.
Right.
It's very much a thing here. Even though some kids here, have technology, it's still very much about like get outside.
And play. Go swimming, go climbing, do something.
Yes, exactly.
Are you finding that a majority of the people are moving there are from the United States, Canada, Europe, a mixture? But who would you say is the most that's moving there?
The highest percentage is still from America. Yes.
Okay.
Then it would say it goes waffles between Canada or across Europe. So for Canadians, it's a little challenging because properties here are typically sold in US dollars. So for Canadians, the exchange rate sucks. For people coming from Europe, it's, a little more accessible because the euro is pretty close to par with the US dollar. So it's a little more accessible for them. But I have clients and friends living here from all over the world. Some of my neighbors are from Switzerland, Austria. There's a young family moving to the end of my road. They're building a house starting next month. They have 3 little kids that got stuck here during COVID and then have been back living in Germany since then. And ever since they returned after COVID, it was like their dream to just like cut ties and move to Costa Rica. So they're moving here in October with their 3 little children and putting them into the expat school here.
So is there a pathway to citizenship other than residency if you want to become a Costa Rican citizen?
So the path to citizenship is through residency. So once you have been a temporary resident for 2 years, then you can apply for your permanent status of residency. Once you have been a resident for 7 years, you can apply for citizenship. And that's when you would get to the main things with getting citizenship are twofold. You can vote and you have a Costa Rican. Those are really the 2 advantages. And so for me, because, I plan to live here potentially forever, I would like the opportunity to vote. And I would love to have a Costa Rican passport.
And a Costa Rican passport, is that a pretty good passport, like for travel, or is there visa restrictions?
There are visa restrictions in certain countries. The US is a big one. Canada is another. So Costa Ricans have to apply for a visa to travel to those countries. A lot of other countries around the world, Costa Ricans do not. So I will never give up.
You don't have to worry about that because you're a Canadian. You have a Canadian passport.
Correct. And I will not ever give that up. Yeah. But so, I do feel it's important to me to have my Costa Rican passport too.
So if I'm a Canadian, an American, a Brit, whatever, and I'm living in Costa Rica and I'm a resident there, how would I go about renewing my passport if I'm living in those countries? You have to go to the embassy in Costa Rica? Is that how that works?
Yes, correct. Yes. So I had to do that actually within 6 months of when I moved to Costa Rica. I spilled coffee on my photo page of my Canadian passport that I had just gotten before I moved here. So I had to go to the embassy in Costa Rica and San Jose and just apply for a new one. But I had it within a couple weeks. So yeah, it was easy. So there's an American embassy there. Most major countries have an embassy in San Jose.
Now, do you ever have to worry about hurricanes in Costa Rica?
No, no. That was another thing that I looked into when I was considering moving to Costa Rica. Hurricanes start building on the Atlantic side. So they get tropical storms there, and we get a touch of tropical storms on the Pacific, but much less than the Atlantic. And then so they build in the Atlantic and travel north. So
Okay.
we don't actually get hit by hurricanes. We do have earthquakes. We have a lot of earthquakes, small, tiny earthquakes, which from everything I've read before I moved here and continues to be held true is that a lot of small earthquakes are better than random large ones, as happened yesterday in Russia.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, the last big earthquake we had here was, I can't remember. It was before I moved here, where there was like some minimal damage, but nothing catastrophic. We also do have volcanoes in Costa Rica, several of them. They're mostly in the north of the country, but they do blow off once in a while. We just had one earlier this year. Poas blew up, and so there was a couple days where it was a little difficult for planes in San Jose. The whole coast here was kind of like hazy for a few days, but no damage to any homes or property or anything. Yeah.
So I'm assuming with a lot of people from Canada, the United States, Europe moving to Costa Rica, that the prices of homes have gone up significantly. So if somebody's thinking about moving there, now would be the time to do it instead of waiting 5 years. But if you could compare it to, say, like the American market or the Canadian market for homes, is it still more equitable to purchase a home there versus, say, in Buffalo, New York, or Saskatchewan, Canada, or something? California.
Yeah. So your dollars go way further here. So first thing about the values of property here is that property values have increased since COVID. We had a huge influx of investment and people moving to Costa Rica during the COVID times. So, but having said that, even the prices at the height of COVID here were not anywhere near as high as they were before the financial crash in the US in 07-08.
Okay.
So that was the peak of Costa Rica real estate. So yeah, people thought, wow, during COVID, like, oh my God, it's so expensive. It was still cheaper than it ever used to be. And properties do hold their values here quite well. Having said that, last year the market was not super robust here. Again, a lot of our buyers come from the US, and just everything that was going on there, we had less people investing in Costa Rica. So we have quite a bit of inventory that we normally would have sold last year, still going into this year. And then of course we always are listing new properties. So right now in Costa Rica, it is a buyer's market. Sorry, sellers. I do tell my clients that, but it is a buyer's market right now. It's amazing, Sean, though. You can get like beautiful, huge, gorgeous coastal estates here for $1.5 million with private beach access that in California would cost you 15-20 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know Shayna and I have talked about getting a second passport or a second residency, and we've always been really interested in that. So if we were to set something up and we could reach out to you and you could point us in the right direction. That would help just to explore those options. Not say we're going to do it, but explore that. But if it's somebody else, not only could you show them real estate, but I'm imagine you have connections with attorneys, you have connections with the banks, you have connections with home inspectors, like you said earlier, real estate people throughout the country.
Yeah.
So um, you're kind of like
Yes.
almost like a one-stop shop.
Yes, absolutely. From my almost 10 years doing real estate here, I have vetted those connections over the years. Also with contractors, sometimes people buy a home here and they decide they want to do a modification to it. I know the good contractors and the bad. There's also really affordable housing here. You can buy a really nice 2-bedroom Mountain View house for $280,000 US. That's in a great location, a great community. So the housing prices here are within reach. Yeah, it's definitely a buyer's market. And I would be
Wow.
happy to assist anyone and everyone. I deal with clients from around the globe. So every week is different, just whoever is jumping into my truck.
So we can check out these properties on your website, right? The properties you
Yes,
list, or maybe you work with other agents that are listing something, and
yes.
they come down and check it out. And if you make an offer, everything can go directly through you.
Yes, absolutely. So the brokerage that I'm with, our website is basically an MLS of the best properties available, specifically in the South Pacific region. But I have referrals with other realtors all around this country.
Okay. And what is that website so that the listeners can check that out if they're interested in property or getting a hold of you?
Yeah, the best way is to get through my Instagram or Facebook page, Real Estate Tours in Costa Rica. And then I have a link in there to our brokerage site.
Okay. I mean, I would highly recommend it. I know I'm going to talk to you off of camera about some things, but I'd highly recommend our listeners, if you're interested, at least go and check it out. If it's not for you, there's hundreds of other countries around the world that you can check out. But I've heard nothing but positive things about Costa Rica. Some negative things, but you're going to hear that no matter where you go. You're going to hear negative stuff. But I know of
Yes.
personally quite a few people that have either split their time with Costa Rica in the United States or have moved there full time. And they talk
Hmm.
about the beautiful weather. They talk about the friends that they've made, the close communities, especially the expat communities, because you're not alone. You're from Canada, I'm from the United States, but we're children of the same father, England. So so we
Yes,
could we
exactly.
could definitely
Yeah.
have a lot in common.
Yeah. And the nice thing too here is, Sean, there are so many opportunities, whether you're living here full time or part time, or even just coming on vacation, to integrate into the local Costa Rican community. There are pet rescues around the country for dogs and cats. I just saw a post yesterday for the local wildlife rescue looking for volunteers, even if you're only here for a week and you can give one day of time to walk some dogs or help clean it, the monkey cage or whatever. It goes a long way. We also have local community event centers, people taking Spanish lessons, Tico's taking English lessons, family centers where you can donate things. Like, for example, when you buy a home in Costa Rica, 99% of the time it comes fully furnished. And
Oh,
so
okay.
if there's things in the house that, just aren't your taste, but you love the home, you can donate those things. You can sell them on Facebook. We have great resale places, but you can be really plugged into the local community here. And I have to say, even though I've lived here for coming up on 11 years, when I see monkeys in my yard or scarlet macaws flying by, I still pinch myself. I still, all these years later, last night I was outside taking a photo of the sunset over the Pacific. I have thousands of sunset photos. Like, what the heck am I going to do with another one? But I can't stop myself.
Yes. So, Rebecca, as we wind up this today's podcast, and I found this very insightful. If you could say one thing to the people living in where you're from, Canada or the United States, Europe, if you could give them one bit of information, one insight into your life and into your Costa Rican experience, what would that be?
don't wait. There never is a better time than now. You know, I have a dear friend who passed away just on Monday, but she lived here for 7 or 8 years, and this was a dream, and she did it, and I'm so glad she didn't wait.
So there you have it. Don't wait. The words from Rebecca. I will tell you what, Rebecca, it has been great to have you on the show. Make sure to go check out Rebecca Rowntree on all the social media platforms she's at. You can check her out on Instagram. She's on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. She's all over the place. She has been a delight to have today on today's show. Very easy to communicate with. We reached out to her for the show, and she was back with us real quick and real easy to schedule. She's a very communicative person, so you will not be at a loss with dealing with Rebecca. And Rebecca, thank you very much for being on today's show.
Thank you, Sean. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
And if you like what you saw, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and click that notification bell below. You can also find us on Rumble. We're on Odyssey. We're on LinkedIn. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon. We're on Apple. We're all over the place when it comes to podcasts. And feel free to check us out and listen to Rebecca. And until the next time, have fun storming the castle.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Kling Connection Travel Talks podcast.